So, first off, Jeff, thanks for calling and telling me about the both the Zen and the ancient day, and also the Mahasi. And what I would like to introduce to you is that they're the same teaching, but that one goes into more detail and the other one just gets to the point. It's like an Aesop fable. Do we put a lot of detail in before we get to the point? Well, Zen just goes right to the point, to where the Theravada has a long, meandering story about it.
Yeah, I'm
But,
starting to realize that.
well, that long, meandering story actually has quite a lot of value because it puts it into context so that when one, let us say, gets to the point that they are shoved off of the ledge by their teacher into the abyss called teaching, that you really got to know what you're talking about. And so, learning all of those things. But basically, what it boils down to is just one little thing. The Buddha teaches just one little thing, and that's all there is to it. And that is, you probably heard the phrase dukkha, dukkha nirodha. Have you heard that phrase?
Yes.
Okay. Now, normally we translate the word dukkha as suffering. But you and I both right now can look at you and see you're not suffering.
Well, sometimes.
Ah, but basically what you are saying, are willing to admit, is that you're dissatisfied with things and dissatisfied often.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's a better, much better word as translation, you see. Most of the Western Buddhism relies upon uh, the Western translations that started through the Polytech Society back in the 1880s with I.B. Honer and Riles Davies and Christopher, Christmas Humphreys and that kind of old crowd. And then they did the lexicons, and now all of the modern translators use the lexicons that were set up 100 years ago or more. And that those of us who actually finally figure out what the Buddha actually was on about and want to start using the right words, we're already in the habit of using the wrong words, like mindfulness and concentration and monk, nun, bowl, temple, suffering. That whole vocabulary is not really useful. But these are mostly Christian words, and so the word dukkha is translated as the word suffering, and nobody's suffering. Not until we're nailed up on a tree or something, then we can suffer. And that's what, I don't know why they decided to use that word, but it certainly does, and put Buddha up in there, that crowd with Jesus, way up in the air. It would be much better for you to think of the Buddha as just a big burly dude who sat around howling with laughter all the time, rather than something spiritual. That in fact, Buddhism has turned into a religion for various reasons over the centuries, especially starting at the time of Ashoka, when a lot of people came into the order without really understanding the real teachings. That because it became state sponsored religion, that so many new people joined that the old original teachers were overwhelmed, and so the new students started teaching themselves. And this is what then became the Buddhist religion. But there has always been that core that is the noble part. And so this is what we're actually wanting to teach. And so by doing that, we should select a vocabulary that closely matches what we're actually trying to teach. And so when I catch myself using the word mindfulness or using the word suffering, I have to say, nope, that's not the best translation. So that's basically what it is all about, is can we identify those times when we are in a state of dissatisfaction and then turn that around so that we get ourselves into a state of satisfaction and then maintain it. Now, that's about as simple of an explanation as could be possibly said. The Buddha got it down to just 3 words: dukkha, dukkha, nirodha. I like the phrase, don't worry, be happy. It's the same thing. The other way of looking at it that some student came up with is get happy, stay happy. And so that's his. And so it's really a mental exercise. It's learning how to clean the junk out of the mind. And Zazen talks about it in the sense of just sitting. Well, that's all they want you to do. Just sit. That's all you have to do because there's nothing there. And so they've told you the whole show. It's just that they don't give you any details
Yeah,
on how to
for
arrive at
the
that.
longer path a little bit extra.
And it's also what we're talking about is very much like what the Mahasi has when they start with rising, falling, touching, and sitting. And then they talk about noting. Well, basically, what we're really talking about here is let's start noting that dissatisfaction in whatever forms that it comes in so that we can take note of it. Because if we take note of it, then we can do something about it. So, in one regard, I hear this happening. In fact, I've got some, let us say, students who have been online now for more than 3 years, and this seems to be a wall that fairly advanced meditators come into, but it's the very first problem that we have anyway. And that is the way that it's expressed by the advanced meditator is look how long that I have been meditating, that I have been an advanced student. I've gotten so much out of it. Why do I have to keep doing it again? So let me give you another example of just that. Let us say that the dude's got a really natty old beard and he's decided to shave. And now that it took all of the work that it took to shave, and he's clean shaven and looks handsome and everybody is smiling at him and all of that, now he's frustrated because he's got to shave again. And he's got to shave again. That the old beard keeps growing back. But the good news is that, yeah, but now you know how to shave. But you have to do the shaving again, and the next time that you do it, it's not so much effort. The first time it takes to shave, it takes a lot of work. Well, the recognizing that we need a shave and then not giving ourselves a shave is what people refer to in Buddhism as choiceless awareness. I'm aware that that old scruffy beard is there, it itches and it's dirty, but I'm not going to shave. Another example is, well, I have meditated myself right to the middle of this road. This is a really nice modern highway of eightfold path I've given myself. And now I see that big old truck bearing down on me, and I say, this is my road. I should not have to stand out of the way of that truck. And so I stand there and get run over. In this regard, what is that big truck? It's dissatisfaction in some form. When it comes, the right thing to do is just stand out of the way, even though standing out of the way takes some effort. But most people want to behave like Popeye and try to slam the truck. rather than standing out of its way. And so with the noting technique of Mahasi, many people get into too much noting. In other words, the note that they're taking becomes the issue. An example of doing that would be, I use the word witness.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that the witness has two jobs. The first job is that he saw what happened. The second job is now he's got to tell a story about it. All right. So that's the problem for the Westerner that is lost in the translation from the Burmese. So when U Pandita says to note, he's not talking about the noting that we think of as like taking note of it, notepads, post-it notes, that kind of stuff, which means that now we're putting a lot of effort into it, or we're going and being on the stand for that witness. But rather the noting that needs to be done is the waking up. That's the sati. You've heard of satipatthana and anapanasati, and so you know that word. It's also one of the items on the Eightfold Noble Path. It's also one of the seven factors of enlightenment. It's also the outcome of one of the bases of power. So sati is all over the place. That's the point to start. That's the one that's the most important skill to be developed. If we don't have sati, then we can't do anything else. It's like we have to remember, you have to remember to go to the bathroom. If you don't remember to go to the bathroom, you're just going to crap all over yourself. That's happened. And so that's what sati is that we have to remember. And that remembering then would look at what we're doing, to look at where we're going, to see what's happening. And what we're actually seeing is, in fact, in this regard, of the mind wandering away. So at the very, very beginning of practice of anapanasati would be mindfulness of breathing, that then that breathing becomes an anchor for the sati. So that when the mind is off the breath, and we recognize that the mind is off the breath, that's the point of waking up. Oh, my mind was not watching the breath. Well, the Western mind don't like that. That's a kind of dissatisfaction. I told my mind to watch the breath and is not watching the breath. And so we become dissatisfied. Actually, what we're doing is we're just playing out the normal habit. Anything that we see that we don't like, we become dissatisfied with it. But the real thing that's happening is that, for one thing, the mind wandering away is this normal state. It's going to continue to wander away, just like the beard is going to continue to grow no matter how often you shave. It's going to keep growing back. Well, the mind is just keep going off someplace. It works in the sense of, Freud called it free association. The mind is so fast that it can go from here to Saturn. You know Saturn, the one that's got all of those rings around it? Okay, well, come back here now. You just went to Saturn in your mind, and the speed of light will take about an hour to reach Saturn. So it's a 2-hour round trip at the speed of light. See how much faster the mind is? Wow, the mind is so fast. So with this kind of fast mind, it will wander away immediately. But then when we remember, when sati occurs, then it can immediately be brought back. And it doesn't take very much effort, but it does take some effort. In fact, that's also an item on the Eightfold Noble Path, is right effort. So now we've got right sati, we've got right effort. We know that we're practicing this because it's better to practice and to get the mind free from dissatisfaction than it is to stay in a constant state of dissatisfaction, of pain, of suffering, if you want to call it that, or anger, jealousy, fear, anxiety, wanting things we don't have, that class of stuff. The stuff that is the ways that we become dissatisfied. But your right view is, oh, I don't want to live my life in that. I want to come to a state of satisfaction so that I can be pleased with the way things are. Actually, that word pleased, the way that I'm using it here, in the Pali language, there is a word called sukha, and that it's also has been over the centuries incorporated directly into the Thai language. So that duk and suk are now Thai words that are used the same way as they are in the Pali, but in the English translation, they're not related, rather than the fact that they're just two sides of the same coin. We're either satisfied or we're dissatisfied. We're in a state of pleasure or we're in a state of displeasure. That's what this is all about. And so, how can we get ourselves into a state of pleasure? Or how can we get ourselves into a state of satisfaction? That's basically all there is to it, except that the mind will wander away again. The beard will start to grow back again. And so we have to take it and do the process again. So basically what we're saying there is that there are four qualities of the Eightfold Noble Path that are to be practiced as we practicing Anapanasati, whether we're calling it the Zen or Mahasi or um, Tibetan or whatever. When the practice is done correctly, it's always the